here is my Girl Scout Gold Award project. The Gold Award is the highest award a Girl Scout can earn, and it is expected to make a sustainable impact on a community. For this project, I sat down with all different people in the North Reading community and asked them the same question. What events have most shaped you into who you are today? Despite their vastly different experiences, some themes kept coming up: overcoming obstacles, connection to community, and a desire to give back, among many others. I've compiled these stories in the hopes that you will view the final product as incomplete. For every story that is told here, hundreds are still out there. I urge you to go out into the community in curiosity, learn about your neighbors, and celebrate what unites you and what sets you apart. Thanks for listening.
I want to say that I don't have one story. I think a life is more than one bolt out of the blue. There were three things in my life that I looked at. One was absolutely positively getting married. And when I say getting married, also going with that is having two boys and raising them and moving along in their lives. It changes you. It does change you. The second thing that happened was my term in the service. I was in Vietnam. I was not a combat soldier, but it was a different war, and it was a war that affected, I think, almost everybody. The third thing that happened was a major automobile accident. I was a great runner. I got hit by a drunk driver. It took away my ability to run. I asked the doctor a number of times if I would ever be able to run again, and he said, no, you won't. You'll never get your gait back. And I tried, and I couldn't. And that was very, very, very frustrating. My mother, God bless her, and God rest her soul, was a wonderful person. She could be the biggest PETA. My brother and I were helping her do some things at her house in Medford, and she was just being, it's got to be this way, it's got to be this way, it's got to be this way. And after about 5 hours, I was a little tense. So I went home, and I said, I missed my run this morning. We're going out to my wife. I said, but I'm going to take a quick run. And a quick run for me could have been an 8-mile run. I could finish third in my age group at any 5K, 10K. I said, I'm going to go run. I'll be back. Get ready. We'll go out as soon as I come back. I'll take a quick shower and we'll be done. Never came back. Because, bam. Drunk driver, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, APP, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Now, I know it's November, but it isn't dark, okay? I never saw him coming. I was running facing traffic. He wasn't there, and the next thing I know, he was there. And he just hit me. According to the lady across the street who saw it, and she said, I saw you bounce off his front fender, bounce off the roof, bounce off his rear fender, and land on the grass. This is true. And laid there. She called up the cops, the cruiser, and they took me first to Choate Sims Hospital in Woburn, moved me from there into Brigham and Women's Hospital. The emergency room in charge doctor happened to be an orthopedic surgeon. You talk about a man who needed to be in the right place at the right time, and a person like me who got to the right place at the right time. He did wonders with my leg as much as he could. Punctured my lung, and that's what they were more worried about. And they were worried about infection because I was in the dirt and everything was open. The bottom part of my leg was open, the bones were protruding through, they tell me, and so forth and so on. They fought the infection. I was in ICU for about a week and a half. I think it was about a week and a half. I want to say almost 2 weeks, but let's leave it at a week and a half. You know, there's a story I tell. It's not really a true story, but it's a story I tell because I work for the Globe. And after I got out of ICU, they said, would you like to get a Daily Globe? And I hadn't thought about it forever. And I said, the story goes, this is a story, okay? They're still getting the paper out without me? How can they possibly do that? And you realize, the world goes on. The positive things that came out of that was the patience it taught me, all right? And I was never patient. I was in a cast. a hinge on my knee, okay, and an external fixator holding the bones in the calf of your leg steady. They could not mend them. They could not reset them. It was compound fracture, pieces were missing, and so forth and so on. So you become patient. And when I finally did go back to work with this big cast, I couldn't run away from people. You have to deal with them. So you do, and you learn patience, and you learn to maybe listen a little better. I wake up singing. I still do wake up singing. I like life. I like it a little more now. I really do. I married at the Lord Wakefield in Wakefield, Mass. We had been going together for years, 2 years through high school, started college. I had tried to join the Army. It didn't work. They didn't take me for some strange physical reason. And I wanted to be in Army intelligence because I thought I was fairly intelligent. So I said, well, hell with it, I'm going to get married. And he says, well, you can do that if you want, but that's not going to defer you from the draft. I says, well, I don't know. We'll gamble. I got married. I think got married in September, January of the next year. I was gone. I get drafted. Boom. And 4 months later, I was on my way to Vietnam, part of the 36th Signal Battalion support company for an infantry division. There was a lot of fighting going on around us. That was a year's tour. It was a good tour because I wasn't on the front line. It was still scary. There were incoming mortar attacks in our area where you had to hide in a hole in the ground. People did get hurt running from shrapnel, but nobody got killed by enemy fire. One morning I was feeling really punky. I'd been feeling punky for weeks, well, for days. And I said, I gotta go on sick call. All congested, sweaty, blah, blah, blah. Got to the sick call, and I'm sitting in the waiting room, and here's this guy laying on the floor. And he's got a bullet, went through his thigh. He was sitting in a helicopter. We got to talk, and they're saying, my God, what the hell am I doing? Look at this guy. He's bleeding. He's got bandages in there, fresh blood on the bandages. Went through his thigh here, came out, and went through his jaw. And then the doctor comes in and says, okay, let's see what's going on. He says, well, you got walking pneumonia after the test and so forth. He says, we're going to put you in the hospital for a couple days. I said, no. And he looked at me and said, what do you mean, no? I says, look, I just was sitting with that guy that you took in with the wounds. I says, I'm not taking a bed. Can you send me home and just give me some meds and I'll stay in bed? He says, well, you've got to stay in bed. I can do that if you really want to do that. Why don't you? I said, I don't want to stay here because of him. I'm not taking a bed. If I'm in a bed, somebody's not going to have a bed. I said, so no, I don't want to do that. So he sent me home. He sent me to my hooch. I had 4 days off. It was sweet. Not supposed to do anything. So people were going to the mess hall and bring me my breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I had breakfast in bed for 4 days. 5th day, I was back to work. I felt better. I really did. Scary. Vietnam was scary. Even for a non-combatant, it was scary in a forward area. Even if you were in Saigon City, it was scary because you were never safe. Totally different group of people that I worked with. Opened my eyes. My interaction with any other but white Anglo-Saxon Catholics was minimal. All of a sudden I'm dealing with black people, Asian people. I'm dealing with kids from the West Coast with a totally different mindset. I'm dealing with what we call lifers, people who were in the Army forever. I think that taught me how to deal with people. I can remember Terry Bingham, Sergeant Bingham, a kid from the streets of Philadelphia, Vietnam, my sergeant, greatest kid in the world, always had a good thing to say about people, always willing to help. The best piece of advice I ever got about marriage was what my father said to me when we were working together at a family-owned gas station in Malden. And we were sitting outside a hot summer day, sharing a Coke, both of us, tired, hot, blah. And it was getting close to being married because it was August and we get married in September. And he said, I just want to give you one piece of advice. Now, he very rarely gave me advice. He told me what to do, told me what not to do. And he said, it isn't all a bowl of cherries. And after about the first 25 years, I came back home and said, you are right. Once again, it's patience. You start out with what you think is A, person A, opposite you, and I'm sure she started out with what she thought was person A, and I know she does. You learn to roll with them. You learn to say, okay, experiences are different, pain is different, but it's still pain. So marriage teaches you that you have to work with people. You can't pick and choose. You know, you can't say, oh, she's a jackass, I'm out of here. She doesn't want me to do that, and I'm going to go do it anyways now. Just dealing with people. People are the most important thing you got. I love my street in town. I love the people on it. I'm 72 years old last February. I'm one of the few who can knock on the door of almost every house and be welcomed. So you learn patience, you learn how to deal with people. You try to learn how to save money, but somehow that doesn't work out. It doesn't. You try to give kids their freedom. After they saw me get hurt so badly by a drunk driver, it did change their attitudes towards driving and drinking. It didn't change their attitudes towards drinking. When you're young, I think you're going to drink. But I know they never drove drunk. Our oldest called me one morning, and we had that stipulation. You can't drive, call mommy. Called me one Sunday morning. He had been down at Tim Looney's house, a friend of his in Winchester. I said, can you come and get me? You should have seen his face when I picked him. He looked like... Must have been an all-night party. Left his car there, drove him home, didn't say a word. I laughed. And I don't know if he's forgiven me for that or not. I think he has, probably. And about 5 or 6 hours later, he got up and he said, can you drive me back so I can get the car? I says, you sure? And he says, yeah, I'm good. I says, okay, drove him back. He got the car, he followed me home. That was it. Once again, you learn patience with children. You learn patience in a marriage. You learn trust people. Trust people. Every kid in the neighborhood has played in my yard. Almost every kid in the neighborhood has been in my house. I've only had to stop talking to one child for one brief moment in time because I said, until you apologize, I don't want to see you in my yard. I don't want to see you in my house. I don't want to see you here. It took him 2 days, and he finally came over and said, I am really sorry, Mr. G. I says, fine. You can have patience. I've been screwed sometimes by bad people. Sure you have. But rare. Most of my experiences with other people have been good. Absolutely. I'm still able to make ends meet. My pension that I was hoping to have disappeared after the crash. That pension, my Social Security check, and my wife's Social Security check, we're not rich, but we're doing all right. Able to pay the bills. Able to go out to eat at the shoe once in a while. Okay? My life is good.
I'm Lucy Wagner, and I'm 11 years old. I go to the North Reading Middle School. The day before school, a lot of kids got together to sing for all the teachers, to inspire them to teach like they do now. It was all the schools. It was from kids going into 3rd grade to going into their last year of high school. That was important to me because I felt like I was inspiring the teachers, because sometimes they forget if they're frustrated with their students or if they're really tired and they don't want to teach that day, and we remind them why they teach every year. All my music teachers, Miss Larson and Miss Lister, and my art teachers, Miss Shaw and Miss O'Brien, they all inspired me to be artistic and creative and, to sing. Miss Lister and Miss Larson taught me how to sing and how to act and be really outgoing. And my band teacher, Mrs. Dye, also taught me how to play the flute. Well, I discovered it as I got older. I think I started really liking music in 3rd grade. I remember in 4th grade we had a chorus, and my friend and I joined because we thought it would be fun, and I guess it stuck. We got like an email asking if we wanted to do it. The music teachers picked students that they thought were really outgoing and made them happy. We all split up into groups for our different vocal ranges one year, and one year we all sang together, and we did a lot of listening to music, and we helped each other with learning our songs. And my favorite part was when we got to learn to sing the song. The first year there weren't as many kids. In the second year they expanded the grade levels a little bit. They went 2 grades earlier. There were a lot of strong singers, and if they start earlier in the grades, then more people get a chance to be part of it. We went out on the stage after speeches for the teachers the day before school, and it was pretty cold on the stage, but it was nice, and we sang for all the teachers. The teachers were all happy when we were ready to leave after we collected all our homework or snacks or whatever from backstage. After we collected those, we went out and I saw all the teachers looked really happy, and some of my old teachers, or my teachers, I saw, and they congratulated all of us. The most important aspect was that we all worked really hard just to make this a happy day for the teachers. I know that some of the teachers can get frustrated with us, and I realized that a year later. After this, I know I sang a lot more, and I decided to participate in the plays at school. When I was at the Batchelder School, we did a program called Jump Rope for Heart, and it was a program where we raised money for kids in hospitals so they can pay for blankets and medicine and research. We first found out in gym class. In a lot of our gym classes, we learned how to do different jump rope tricks, and we talked about how the money will go to help the kids in hospitals. Well, a lot of kids went around their streets or around the town, and they asked people if they wanted to donate to the cause, and some kids jump roped for them. It was in the winter, and it was pretty cold. Well, I remember at the end of the program, after we all turned in our money and we had raised a lot, a group of kids came in and did a bunch of really fancy jump rope tricks for us. They were kids who either, I don't know if they were at the hospital or if they were just kids who raised money too, but they knew a lot of jump rope tricks. We got a large amount of money to donate to the hospital, and we got prizes for what we raised too. Well, I think that it must have felt really good if you're in a hospital and you're pretty sad, but you think of all the kids who are raising money for you. It makes you feel a lot better. And also I've heard that a lot of kids in hospitals ask, like, who made this blanket for us, or who sent us this book. I didn't know anyone who was in that hospital, but I still think it was really important to help all of them because they deserve to go to normal school and be happy. I think I took away that it was good that there are a lot of generous people who might have been in a hospital or understand that we can raise money for them, and it felt really good to think that we were helping them. I'm glad I did, because we had a choice to participate or not participate, even though we still got to learn to jump rope. I think it's good that you had the choice, because most kids did participate, but if you were, for say, too busy to go around and ask for money, or if you just wanted to donate a lot of your own money, then it might have been sort of a bad thing to have to do it. We're also raising money for our school. Well, I think it's nice that we're raising money for our school, and I'm glad that we are, because we might get some new textbooks or Chromebooks, but I think it was even more important to me to raise money for those kids who are really in need. Both of the events helped people, like the teachers and the kids in hospitals both might need cheering up.
It was a dark, snowy night. Well, it was a snowy day. And my sister called and said, come on over. I was single. She said, you have to take the dog out. So come on over. There's a single guy upstairs in my house. I'll invite him down. We'll play cards. And then when you and the dog have warmed up, you can go home. I lived around the corner. So that's what we did. We played cards. We really didn't hit it off with each other. But we went out on a couple of double dates with my sister and her husband and decided, I guess, that we liked each other. So we spent the next 40-something years proving it. My sister moved to North Reading. Actually, the year we were getting married, she moved up here. And we came up to visit, to see the house, and we said, how did she ever find this town? We had never been here. We never heard of it. The Route 62, Ryers was the only thing on it, and the lights were out before 9 o'clock. But the following year, we, after we got married and had our first child, decided we really don't want to bring him up in the city. My sister said, there's a little house down the street from me. It's in foreclosure. The price should be right. So we bought the house, and it was wonderful. It had, things that needed to be done. It was our first experience with water in the basement. We had never heard of such a thing, but there was a pump that pumped the water out every time we came in the basement. And it pumped, and it pumped, and there was always water in the basement, and pumped. And my mother was there one day, and she came and she looked outside of where it pumps to, and we didn't have any kind of an extension on the little pipe coming out of the wall. So it was pumping the water out, which quickly came back into the basement to be pumped out again, and we were recycling it. The house had a big backyard, beautiful backyard, and it had a lovely, huge weeping willow back there. And when my husband would go out with my son and play in the yard, they would go and rest under the weeping willow, and we have pictures of the two of them sitting there. So every time I drive by now, I try to see if the tree is still there. I suspect it's not, which would make me very sad if I see that. But it was our landmark. It was our tree. My husband and my sister were wallpapering the room for the baby, and it was a little boy, so we had sailboats. And they started, and they worked very well together. Doing wallpapering, and they started and were following it all the way around. And there was just one problem. By the time they got back to where they started, the sailboat number 1 was at the ceiling, and the last sailboat was halfway down the wall. They hadn't quite kept up with their measurements. We had a couple more children while we were there, so we outgrew the little house. And we bought the house we're in now, which is 8 rooms compared to the 4 we started. And when we went in, we thought we had moved into the biggest house in the world with so many rooms. But we had 2 more children, so we filled it up quickly. The best things were holidays at the house, because the house was nice and big, and the children had plenty of room outside. It was a nice, quiet street. The neighbors were all wonderful. And the children on the 2 streets beside each other, they were all the same age. So they always had someone to go out and play with. We had, cookouts, and we had a pool, an above-the-ground pool, which was the thing back then. And the kids were in the pool every day. The neighborhood kids could come in, but they had to bring their moms, because I didn't swim. And even though it was only 3 or 4 feet of water, their mothers had to be there. And one day, after we had had the pool for quite a while, one of the girls belonged to the girls group at the KFC, and she had all of her friends from her group over. And they were all in the pool having a wonderful time, and then we heard a scream. The wall of the pool collapsed, and one of the girls, it was like she was on the rapids, was on top of the water as it went all the way down and turned around in our backyard. By the grace of God only, she didn't get cut by any of the rocks that might have been there, or the steel that split on the pool. The inside evidently had rusted. Of course, we didn't see it on the outside. And with all the girls in there, it gave it that much pressure. And I will never forget watching her going down the rapids in my backyard. But she was fine. That was one of the highlights of growing up in the neighborhood. We used to have Christmas Eve open house, and all our friends would come over. The children would all be sent to bed. And when the last couple of people were there, my husband and his friends would go out in 2 or 3 cars to my mother's, who lived a mile away, and load the cars up with Santa's gifts. So that when the kids woke up in the morning, the family room was just all loaded with their stuff. And my husband would go every night after work over to my mother's and wrap gifts. And one year he said, I am not wrapping them. All they do is unwrap them. They don't care that they're wrapped. So we had Christmas morning with none of the gifts wrapped. It was the saddest Christmas morning I ever had. So we wrapped them after that. The children weren't sad, I was sad, because to walk in and see what you had asked for, everything you asked for piled up, there was no pleasure. I enjoyed being single. That was nice. In downtown Boston, and my favorite place to go was either Filene's Basement or Jordan Marsh, neither one of which are there anymore. There was no Marshalls or TJ Maxx, but they had cancellation shoe stores, which was my joy. And all the stores knew my size. And if the shoes came in that size, they'd hold them for me. So I would spend my lunch hour trying on shoes. Before I got married, everything was about me, what I wanted. If I wanted to buy something, there was no reason not to buy it. But when we had children, it was a whole different ballgame. It was, oh, gee, I like those shoes. Well, I think Michelle needs a pair of shoes. Let's go get shoes. Oh, that looks like a real cute outfit. Does it come in size 18 months as opposed to my size? Your whole perspective changes. You feel good if your kids look good. It's a joy to see them growing up and changing. Until they're about 9 years old, and then it's like overnight they're 15 years old. Those in-between years just fly by. The kids all went to North Reading High School, all of the North Reading schools, and they made some great friends going to school, but everybody went off and scattered and went different directions. And the last one seems to know everybody in town. I do not know how, but wherever we go, or if I say, oh, I need to do this, oh, I'll call so-and-so. Or if a repairman comes, hi, how are you? We went to school together. So it's really nice. That was what we were looking for in a small town. And we're still here since 1961. I'm still here. Only the last one lives in town. The others, we've got a couple in North Andover and Shrewsbury, but they all come back to visit.
My name's Joel Keaton. I'm an 8th grader at North Reading Middle School. In August of 2011, my family took an amazing month-long vacation, a road trip adventure across the western United States. Nicknamed by my dad as MOAV, or M-O-A-V, which stands for Mother of All Vacations, our 2011 trip became the first in a string of annual summer adventures. These amazing road trips always start a few days before departure with a test run of our vintage Coleman pop-up camper. After packing it full of water, sleeping bags, and all of the supplies and cooking utensils necessary to last for the full month we were gone, we hitch up the camper to our Chrysler Town & Country van and drive it on the highway and on some side streets to test every condition that both the van and the camper will experience on the trip. On the night before we leave, we pack up all of our clothes, toiletries, and food, then cram it all into the cargo space of the van. Then we turn in early to get a good night's sleep so we can get up around 4:30 in the morning for a head start on the day. This usually means we beat most of the traffic around Boston and get to our first destination well before sundown. My mom always plans a full itinerary of places to visit well in advance and plots the best route between them. Some days are for touring and hiking and exploring, and other days are travel days as we move from one area of interest to the next. At the end of each day, we either set up camp in a campsite already reserved for us, or stay in a hotel if there were no campgrounds near where we wanted to stay that night. If we stay at a campground overnight, our first order of business is unhitching the camper, stabilizing it, and cranking it open. Next on the agenda is cooking dinner at our campsite's picnic table on our camp stove, or sometimes roasting hot dogs over a campfire. Then washing up our dishes, taking showers if the campground has them, brushing our teeth, and then snuggling into our sleeping bags back in the camper. If there's time, my mom reads out loud to us before we all go to sleep. After a tiring day, it's always easy to fall asleep. The alternate hotel scenario requires checking in, getting settled into our room, ordering pizza, taking showers, and assigning beds. We love to visit national parks, monuments, and historical sites. In fact, we've visited nearly 90 different National Park Service units, in addition to countless state parks, national forests, and recreation areas. If it's a day for exploring, we either go to the park's visitor center, check out the museum or displays, drive along scenic routes, or go on amazing hikes through the surrounding area. When visiting big parks like Arches or Bryce Canyon, we usually spend several days. I liked Arches because there was the trail leading up to Delicate Arch. It was just slick rock the whole way, and we went early to beat the rush of people, and the sun was rising as we were hiking. It was really beautiful in the sunrise. We didn't get to spend that much time at the Grand Canyon. When we were there, it was just really cool to be there in the moment. At the end of those days, we head back to our campsite, our temporary home away from home. After a month of traveling and exploring the country, it's finally time to head back home to Massachusetts, as all good things must come to an end. The last 2 days of the trip are usually the hardest, with long days driving in the van to cover ground and not much else to do. Once we pull into our driveway, we start clearing out all of our stuff from the van and camper and put it back where it belongs. It's fun to see all of the souvenirs that we've collected along the way, and the reminiscing about our awesome trip begins. So far, our family has had 4 of these amazing wow adventures right here in our own country, and I hope to go on many more. I just think it's amazing how there's all these different experiences in one place, as a country. It's basically influenced my perspective of the country and my sense of nature and exploration. I think it's made me a more observant person when I'm out and around. Sometimes when we go walking in Ipswich River Park, it just brings me back to how on the hikes it's just like a forest in the middle of nowhere. You're just walking through it and it's just beautiful. At school, there's an amazing club that at first didn't sound very interesting to me as a student. Entitled Science Olympiad, it was described to me as a science club that prepares and competes at a tournament every year. I started it because I have an interest in science and technology and might want to study something like that in college, and I think that would be a good stepping stone for me. What I didn't realize was that this club is more than meeting for science. It takes people who have a passion for science and makes bonds between everyone on the team, led by Mr. Gorgani, one of the 8th grade science teachers. Mr. Gorgani helps us through everything. He's there for us when we need him, and I think that's really important to the team. A team is assembled at the beginning of the year from people who are interested in joining. The events range from test events to building events. The test events include invasive species, which test knowledge on invasive animals and plants, Reach for the Stars, which tests knowledge on aspects of astronomy, and Road Scholars, which relies on map knowledge to answer questions in a journey scenario. The building events require a hand-built finished product to take to the tournament to be tested, which is considerably harder than the test events. Last year there was a bridge event where you had to build a small wooden bridge to see how much weight it could hold. This year there was a similar event, except that the competitors built wooden towers instead. Then there is the traditional bottle rocket event, where you have to build a rocket out of soda bottles and compete to see which can be launched the farthest and also land the softest to protect an egg inside the rocket. Some of our Science Olympiad meetings include fun team building games, so we all get to know one another better and can work together better. Once a week over the course of 5 months, we all got together to learn about or work on our assigned event or to build the products to take to the tournament. Some team members might be assigned a second event to prepare for in December. When the tournament finally comes in March, it is a whirlwind of activity the week before, scrambling to prepare with lots of people cramming for the tests. Then the big day, a Saturday, arrives, and all of the teammates are transported to Assumption College in Worcester. Partners that build something have to arrive early at 8 a.m. for impound, which means that they can't make any last-minute modifications before they compete. Our home base is in a designated classroom on campus where everyone on our team comes and goes all day. This is where we hang out between our events and eat. My favorite part is the whole atmosphere of the event and like being in the home base. Just really, really cool. When it was about 10 minutes before our event, we would walk across campus to the building where the event was being held. After the event was completed, we would walk back to home base, where we would junk up on candy, play games, or go outside. Once every event was done by the end of the day, Science Olympiad officials tally up all of the scores. At 4:30, the award ceremony starts in the gym, with all of the teams in circles on the basketball court floor and parents in the stands. Then, one by one, the event results are announced. It is really exciting to hear North Reading called out in the gym, filled with about 30 or so teams from all across Massachusetts. When I participated both in 7th grade and this year in 8th grade, I placed 5th among varsity teams in the Rhodes Scholar event both years. It just teaches you how to work with other people collaboratively on projects that you could do in the real world. I've noticed that I tend to work with people a little bit better in school. It was really fun, and I hope to have more experiences like this in the future.
I was born here. I lived at 129 Park Street. That's where we lived when I was born. I went to North Reading schools, and they were very good about teaching us loyalty to our family and our country. My 4 brothers were in the service. One brother was killed in Korea. I was quite young. I don't remember a whole lot about him, but as I got older and learned more in the schools about what our servicemen did for us, because we always pledge allegiance to the flag. My family was all patriotic, taking care of our country and protecting our country. I made a promise that I would visit his grave every Memorial Day. I thought I would never leave North Reading. I thought, I'm here forever. But I ended up marrying a guy in the Navy, and so we left. And I felt sort of bad because I had made that promise and I didn't keep it. But then in 2005, I actually moved back here. My older brother, who was in the Second World War, had talked to me, and I was thinking I might move back here, and he said, I really would like you to move back here. So I did, and I'm extremely glad I did, because I got to spend the last 5 years with him, and then he passed away. And so I really am glad that I came back, but several opportunities presented themselves. The first Memorial Day, I made it a point to go to the cemetery when they had Memorial Day, where they call off the names of all the veterans that are buried in the cemetery. And Robert, my brother that was killed in Korea, was in the Riverside Cemetery. And I stood there and listened to it. The Minutemen shoot off their muskets and they call the roll. After it was over, I asked one of the Minutemen if they would let me take a picture of them by my brother. which they agreed to. And then behind me, I heard a voice saying, "Are you Robert's sister?" And I said, "Yes." And he says, "I was his best friend." His name is Lyman Fancy. He actually still had a picture of my brother in his wallet. I didn't know all this because I was so young when he passed away, but it was very exciting to meet my brother's best friend. And every year he puts a geranium on my brother's stone. It was just very, very special to me. It was kind of like God said, you couldn't keep your promise when you were away, but I made up for it when I came back. So that was a very special time. Like I say, I grew up at 129 Park Street, and I was a baby. My mother was very sick. She already had a 2-year-old to take care of, and so it was very hard for her to take care of me. And we went to First Baptist Church up on the hill, which is now Trinity, and there was a couple that lived on Riverside Drive, Robert and Pauline Anderson, and they took me in. It was such a close-knit family church that they saw my mother could not take care of a 2-year-old and a newly born. So they took me in. Actually, I lived a lot over there at their house, and I didn't get to interact with my mother and parents that much because I was always over there, which was a great help, not only for my mother, but for me, because in school I was not the smartest duck in the box. But Mrs. Anderson was a teacher, and she would teach me little tricks of how to remember something in math. I wasn't really good at math. With her help, I got through high school. In the formative years, she was very helpful. I was extremely glad that she offered her house to me. In fact, they wanted to adopt me because they had two or three boys and they didn't have any girls. We became very close. They were very instrumental in teaching me, the things that I needed to learn. She lived by Ipswich River on Riverside Drive, and I remember swimming in the Ipswich River. One of the things everybody did, and actually we could, in the wintertime, we could skate from her house downtown. I thought that was pretty cool because then that gave me a little freedom. It was a special time. I moved. I lived in Texas for like 40 years. Mrs. Anderson, she passed away before I got to visit her again, but Pop, which I called him Pop, was in a nursing home in Maine, and so I would always go and visit him, and he would like that. You realize once you're older that the people that really influence you, you don't really think about it at the time. And I never thought about it at the time. I thought, well, this is how it is. But you think back and say, this couple was no relation to us. They would just at the church ask for no money and said, I'd like to step up and help you. My brothers were a lot older than I was. I was protected from a lot of stuff, and I didn't like that. They didn't tell me, what was going on because I was the baby. In retrospect, they were trying to protect me. My mother passed away, and my father remarried, and all the logistics of that, they just didn't talk about it. I didn't like that in a way. They did it lovingly. And now that I've grown, my brother lives in Vermont. When I visit him, we'll talk about those times, and he would tell me what Mom was like and what they did and how they named me. He was 10 years older than I was, and when my mother got pregnant, she said, well, what are we going to name this? And it was up to them. Evidently, there was a book that they read that had Lillian in the book. And so that's how I got my name. Even though I didn't get to know my mom very much, my older brothers kind of fill me in. And I did write my autobiography, and they helped me fill in a lot of the questions that I had. I came across a letter that my mother wrote to my grandmother. It was the first time I had seen my mother's handwriting, and that excited me. And it was really touching. I got to see a part of her that I didn't know, and I got to know her through the letters and through my brothers. So it wasn't all that bad that they were so much older than me, because they remembered. Like I said, I wrote my autobiography. It's on Amazon if anybody's interested in it. Basically for my grandchildren. I have 11 grandchildren. I noticed as I grew older that it seemed like the younger generation gave up too easily on problems, or they didn't seem to know how to persevere. And so basically my book was like, don't ever give up. In high school back then, I don't know how it is now, you could take the college course, the secretarial course, or you could have a trade school. Those were the three options you had. I knew I couldn't go to college because I knew I didn't have the money. And so I took the secretarial courses. That's what I ended up doing. I worked as a secretary for the state of Texas for 25 years and retired. But when I took the secretarial courses, they had business machines and typing and shorthand, and I took all those courses, and the first semester I flunked typing big time. But I made a living doing that. I figured I probably not going to make this if I'm going to flunk it. And they said, no, all it does is take practice. And they were very patient with me to say, yeah, it just takes more practice. And I guess when you're a teenager, you don't want to practice a lot. It didn't seem like it would happen just because you practice. But somehow it does. I've been through a lot. And you can get there too, you know. And of course, I have a strong belief in God. I believe in Jesus Christ. That has pulled me through more than I could say in a book, really. But I wanted to get across to them that there's not anything that you can't get through. I wanted my grandchildren and then the next generation to realize that it's going to be okay. It might not be perfect like you really want it, but it's going to be okay.
Hi, I am Christopher Nearing. I am in 9th grade at the North Reading High School. I play the trumpet in the high school marching band and the jazz band. I run as part of the cross-country team. I am also a Boy Scout in North Reading Troop 750. So when you're in Cub Scouts, you first start as a tiger, and then you go up as a wolf, and then a bear, and then a Weeblo 1, and then a Weeblo 2, and that's from 1st to 5th grade. And then you get your Arrow of Light, and then you move on to 6th grade, which is Boy Scouts, and then Tenderfoot, and then you go to be 2nd class, 1st class, Star Scout, Life Scout, and Eagle Scout, and I'm a Star Scout. I really wanted to do Boy Scouts. Other people kind of told me like it was really fun and you should join it. I started scouting as a Tiger Scout in Cub Scout Pack 729 when I was in 1st grade. I think scouting has had one of my biggest impacts on my life
because it has offered me new and exciting challenges. It helped me find new friends and have fun too. It has gotten me involved with doing things that I probably never would have done. When I think of all the experiences that I have had in scouting, I'm amazed at all the things we did. To start with, I learned that camping out in the woods can be a lot of fun. I fell in love with fishing since the first time I pulled a big bullhead catfish out of Sudden Pond while fishing with my friend John. The catfish flopped all over the place, and it took a bit of work to get him back in the water. Each year our pack sold popcorn. I learned the art of selling because of the popcorn fundraisers. I was the top seller 5 years in a row in Cub Scouts. I got a trophy every year, and in the final year, as Weeblo's 2 Scout, the pack awarded me a Kindle as a prize. I sold popcorn in Boy Scouts too. I'm not exaggerating when I say I must have sold over $10,000 in popcorn overall. There were many other challenging events too, like building your own bottle rocket and launching them to see which rocket can stay in the air the longest. Another big event was building a pine wood derby car out of a block of pine wood, 4 nails, and 4 plastic wheels. You could cut the wood to look like a race car, a truck, and paint it any way you wanted. I saw some cars cut to look like blocks of Swiss cheese or a pencil and even an eraser. You are judged on best design and on which car rolls the fastest. The pack set up a metal racing track on race day, which has a computerized timer that records your time down to the 100th of a second. My first Pinewood Derby car, it looked pretty cool, but it didn't win first place. It may have been the fastest car in our Tiger Den, but there were a lot of other cars in the pack that went faster. I started asking questions and realizing that there were a lot of things you could do to make your car go faster. You could sand the wheels and axles to reduce friction. You could give your car an aerodynamic shape to reduce drag. You could add weights to the car to make it roll faster, up to the 5-ounce limit, that is. You could make sure the car rolled straight and the wheels were aligned. The first time I won a trophy, I was so excited that I was like walking on air. I have a first, a second, and a third place trophy from different years, plus 1 trophy I won at the district race. Only one boy with the fastest car from each of the Tiger, Wolf, Bear, Weeblo 1, and Weeblo 2 ranks got to go to the district race each year to compete against winners from other packs. Usually seeing each year, once you're building it, and then when you race it to see if what you did is really gonna work. It was really exciting when all the other kids were racing, and then I found that my time was the fastest time in the last year, and I was really excited because I was gonna move on to Boy Scouts, and I wouldn't have got one. And so I was really excited that because I got a third and second, and I always wanted that first place trophy, and I finally got it. Scouts is about doing new things and having fun, but it's also about making friends. I joined Boy Scouts in 6th grade and met my good friend Tommy. I went to summer camp with another friend Ryan and did my first swim test. That swim test made the butterflies fly around in my stomach. Don't get me wrong, I am a good swimmer, but I like to swim. But the first time I went to summer camp, the thing I was most worried about was the swim test. Jumping into 9 feet of water and having to swim 75 yards in a strong manner with different strokes, not able to touch bottom, was just not something I had done before. I kept thinking, if I started to sink, would they ever save me? If I couldn't do it, would the boys snicker and crack jokes? Well, my time came and I did it and I swam. My favorite part was probably just, I really loved enjoying the merit badges and learning about new experiences. There were a few challenging ones, like personal fitness. You had to go a few times and do your fitness test, and you had to do it over 12 weeks. A couple of the merit badges had 3 months that you had to do it over a time period, and then after that you had to go meet with your counselor and then perform it and see if you could do better. Later, I had to do some even more challenging swimming tasks, like retrieving a 10-pound weight that was literally in 9 feet of water, and for my swimming merit badge, and then had to swim 1/4 mile nonstop in water over my head for the life-saving merit badge, along with pulling a drowning victim to shore and learning CPR. I did many neat things in Boy Scouts too. In my cooking merit badge, I cooked my first potato scramble Spanish omelet, my first hamburger, and my first peach cobbler on an outdoor grill and Dutch oven in scouting as part of my cooking merit badge. Being a scout is also about leadership. I was the troop bugler, where I learned to play taps, revelry, assembly, and a lot of the other bugle calls. And this year, I plan to be a den chief to help out in the Cub Scout Tiger Den. We will see how being a leader to a group of first-year Tiger Scouts will be. I still want to try a few more things while I'm scouting. Maybe like go on a few more camping trips, or go on a whitewater rafting trip, go fly fishing, or even go hiking up Mount Monadnock or Mount Washington. And scouting is really fun. It's not all fun and games, but it can be work and it can be challenging. But when I look back to see all the adventures I have had and what I learned, I am grateful for all the experiences I've had as part of Cub Scout Pack 729 and Boy Scout Troop 750 in North Reading.
I came in 1959. We lived in Reading before. My husband was brought up in Reading, and so he was familiar with the area, but he knew a builder who was also a policeman that built homes in North Reading. So he spoke with him, and we came and chose a piece of land, and it was very exciting. So by the time we moved to North Reading, we had one child. We have 5 children in all, but our first one was 18 months old. And then eventually we had another child, a daughter. We did some improvement in the yard, and Central Street, as you know, is very busy. So in our backyard, we had tons of pine trees, big pine trees, and the pine needles would fall to the ground. So my husband said, there's never going to be any grass grown there. So he decided to have the backyard hot tub. So they came and poured the hot tub, and it was wonderful because we had a little pedal car for my son, and he could ride that in the backyard. They couldn't go any further than the end of the porch. They couldn't go beyond that. They had the whole backyard. So, as a result of this protected backyard, the neighboring children came, and that was wonderful. You got to know your neighbors and everything, and though I was a nurse, I didn't work until my children went to school, because it was important for me to be there. When they did go to school, I could only work on weekends, and I went to Malden Hospital, and I would work nights, because then I would be home during the day and my husband was home at night with them. Anyway, it was very good. We had very nice neighbors, and it was, very friendly neighborhood. So then I received a call from the Campfire Girls. They were looking for a nurse for their day camp at Harold Parker. And I said, I would love to, but I said, I don't have any transportation. They said, we'll pick you up. I said, well, that's a plus, but I said, I have 2 children. You can take them with you. Well, the picture got better. And for $2 a day is what they paid me. I said, I went to camp, but I loved camp nursing. And I know that sometimes, I get carried away with the nursing, and I'll say, but they need that, but not everybody thinks like a nurse, and which is not a bad thing, because you can't have just nurses. But anyway, life goes on. I had the 2 children, and I thought that was it, a boy and a girl, what could be better. Then 8 years later comes another girl, and then another girl followed that. And then finally a boy came, and I said, this is really it, because I was getting old. you know. We had the 5 children, and it's important for me to be involved. And I was involved in the PTO, and at the middle school, I was substituting for the nurses, so I did get involved in some things. And then when they got to the high school, then they developed the athletic boosters, and we were very involved with that. As a matter of fact, for the athletic boosters, I had a concession stand at the basketball games, and because of that, selling hot dogs, I am in the Hall of Fame. In the Hall of Fame, they recognize a team, an individual sports stars, and coaches, and somebody from the community who has done something to promote sports. So that's how I got into the Hall of Fame. But that was very nice. And then they went on to college. My oldest son was very good in art. And whenever I needed a poster or some artwork, I would say to him, would you do that for me? He'd say, Mom, I don't have time. He said, you can do it. I said, yeah, sure. He said, Matt, he says, go take a lesson. He said, you can do it. So I did. And I love that acrylic work, and I painted on wood, I painted on slate. And I traveled to England with the high school field hockey team, and that was wonderful. And as a result of that, they were overbooked. My friend and I gave up our seats, because it didn't matter when we got back. TWA gave us a voucher, a $400 voucher that we could use on any other trip, and in October we went to Italy, and we spent 10, 12 days in Italy, and that was wonderful. I mean, I just love history. We were standing on a corner, and we were touring, and I happened to turn around, and I said, oh my God, there it is. And they said, what? I said, the Colosseum. And there it was, right there. And, Rome burned, right? And when you're walking along, there was a hole in the street, and you could see Rome underneath, where they had built over. I have done many things. I'm always interested in whatever is happening. When I talk with my relatives or nieces and nephews, they said, Aunt Gloria, you should write a book. I said, yep, I will. And I said, the name of my book will be Noblesse Oblige. And Noblesse Oblige is French. And I come from a French-Canadian background. And when I went to school, it was a parochial school, and half a day was taught in French and the other half was in English. That was elementary, well, from the 1st to the 8th grade. And then the sisters, they had opened a boarding school in Vermont, and they were trying to recruit people. So I went to that boarding school in Vermont. When I was in school, we had so many study periods, but we learned arts and crafts. We learned how to knit, how to crochet, make satin pillows. I was pretty good at typewriting. So I was going to go to Washington, D.C., work for civil service in the government, and anyway, I was going to be set for life. My grandmother said to my father, you're going to let her go to Washington? She's been in a convent all these years, and you're going to let her go by herself? What's the matter with you? So he did talk me into going into nursing. So I went into nursing, and that's how I became a nurse. I loved it, because it was helping people. So coming back to that noblesse oblige, my family name was Roy, which means king. So when I was in boarding school and sister wanted me to do something, she would say, Mademoiselle Leroy, Noblesse oblige, nobility obliges. That's what I said. My title of my book would be Noblesse oblige, because it's important that you serve other people, and that's what it's all about. You know, if people help one another, you know, it would be more peaceful than it is today. I think enjoying people and being involved, you know, with neighbors and doing kind things, you know, for other people. As I told you before, it's important for me to belong, you know. I don't care what I do. If I gotta wash the dishes, you know, we had a group at St. Teresa's. It was called the WACS, which was Women's Activity Council, and a group of us, you know, would work together and plan fashion shows, plan, you know, dinners. You know, we would have the women would be in the women groups in all the churches, you know, whether it was Congregational, the Aldersgate, St. Teresa's, Trinity Evangelical. They would sponsor a dinner, and they would put it on, and the people would go. You would pay, you know, whatever it was, but it was getting everybody together. And then, because it was important for me to belong, I did become involved in 1975 with the bicentennial celebration. I was on a committee then, and we went to all the older homes in North Reading to find out when they had been built. And at that time is when they put a sign on the house that said 1720 or 1860, and found a lot of houses, you know, that had been schoolhouses. I always enjoyed the history, but because I was working and involved, you know, with the family, I didn't have time to go to meetings. But once I retired, I did join the Historical Society. All their meetings, board meetings or open meetings, they were open to the public. Well, I had to go to find out what was happening, right? But, you know, life is what you make it. So if you make it a happy one, then you'll be happy. When I have a friend, I have that friend for life. You know, it doesn't matter if they move away. I call them, I write, maybe just once a year, but I do keep in touch with them. And I had friends on Central Street. They moved to Texas. I did go to Texas. It was to attend a wedding, but I did have occasion to visit with them. Going to her house, she had sweet gumball trees. Do you know sweet gumballs? The sweet gumballs fall off the trees, and they're all over the ground. And I said, "Oh my God, Barbara," I said, "look at these sweet gumballs." And she said, "Oh, there's tons of those." I said, "I know, but I got to pick them up." I said, "I got to buy them in North Reading." I said, "I have to go to Pinewood Garden, which is now the Boston Flower Market." I said, "I have to buy them there." "Oh," she says, "I'll send you a bunch." Your life can be as interesting as your neighbor's life, depending, you know, on the involvement that you have with them. And, you know, I've had many friends. I've lost many friends. But, you know, you just make the best of it. There was a friend who probably brought to mind more about tolerance, you know, that people are different. You know, they may not think like you. You may have a very good thought, but that's not their thought. And so you have to respect that, you know, and you try not to can their thought. I think tolerance is a virtue, you know, that you have to be tolerant and you have to accept, you know, different people's point of view.